Welcome, everyone. Let's get straight into it. Today, we're talking about sorting out guest records and all that sort of stuff. I will these are some of the things we'll be talking about today. The guest portal interface is one of the things we'll start off with, which is sort of a big reason why we're talking about this today. How to collect data, what data should you be collecting? Can you automate some of this? We'll go into field maintenance to work out how you can choose the sort of data you're collecting. And we'll also talk about guest merging. One of the big changes that we've made recently down here at RMS is the look and feel of the guest portal. And the guest portal is becoming an extremely important part of the RMS platform. It's like so many other aspects of life. We're all looking to serve ourselves now, internet banking, service stations, self-checkout, all that sort of stuff. And this is one more thing where we can allow our guests to serve themselves, look after themselves, adjust their bookings and make bookings and all those sort of things. Now, there's been a bit of a change to the user interface of that platform. The main one is how you access it in the first place. Now, if you're sending communication to your guests, such as an SMS or a form letter, you may be including merge fields, which can take the guest directly into the guest portal. They don't have to enter a password or anything like that. They go directly in. Not talking about that so much today, as in just a generic link to get somebody into the portal. And you might display something like that. You might have a button on your website, for instance, which is just a generic link to the portal. This is important for people who might have had a booking, but now they've gone, but they want to go back and perhaps reprint an invoice or something like that, or somebody who just wants to check on, gee, I wonder what my dates of my reservation were. I've lost my confirmation. I'll just duck in here to the guest portal and have a look. If folks go to a button such as that, they are going to see a screen something like this, where it's going to ask them for a mobile phone number or an email address. These are, of course, unique to the guest. When they enter that, they're going to be sent to their mobile device a 6-number access code, which they enter here, which will then take them directly into the portal. They'll be able to see something like this. Unfortunately, if there are multiple records with that email address or that phone number, it's not going to work. So we're going to have to talk today about how to achieve that golden guest record that we're talking about, and how you can merge your multiple records into one. Let's go and talk all about guest data. Now, I'm showing you at the moment, hopefully you can see my screen, where you're seeing a reservation, a typical reservation. You can see in the second and third columns, we've got all the reservation data and the account data, et cetera, et cetera. If I expand this row on the left-hand side, I've got information about the room and correspondence and triggers and all sorts of stuff. But if we concentrate on the guest, I'll just close that up to give us a bit more room. You'll see in the left panel here, what we're seeing is actually a snippet of the guest profile. And once a guest has stayed with you multiple times, this guest record starts to expand out to have an enormous amount of information. What you're looking at here is really just a snippet of that guest information. Now, if we just have a look down at these fields on the left-hand side, you'll see that some of the field labels are underlined, such as guest number. The underlining typically means that we can do something more or go to another place. So let's click on guest number. And this is going to show us the full guest profile. On the left is that snippet we talked about, which is showing us, names and contact details, all that sort of stuff that we like to have. But if we look at the right-hand panes, it's exhaustive, the amount of information. There's volumes and volumes, for instance. There's every piece of correspondence we've ever had backwards and forwards with that guest, not just for this current reservation, but for every reservation past, current and future. We've got a tab here for contacts. So maybe I deal with Mr. Example guest when he comes to stay, but maybe I speak to Helen in accounts payable at the company he works for. So I need that person's details. Maybe I need their banking because maybe I'm doing a direct credit every month, direct debit. There is the history of every stay that this guest has had. We've got requirements and traces. Traces are a new thing, which there's a video out now on the YouTube channel if you want to find out all about traces. And in this particular case, we're noting that example guest has a birthday coming up, and it's a good prompt for somebody in the front desk to maybe send them a nice birthday message. Next one is special events, and if you want my opinion, is probably being replaced a little bit by traces, but this once again would be a way of recording any sort of special event, such as a birthday, anniversary, or expiry of a lease, whatever. You can use that for a whole range of things. We could have a photo of the guest. I don't know anyone who does that, but you could. There's the audit trail, and also a record of EDM. So if you're using the EDM module and you've sent this guest an EDM in the past, there'll be a full record here of any interactions that guest has had, whether they've unsubscribed, whether they've clicked through, all that sort of stuff. Along the top, we can send messages to the guest. We can keep a record of their CC credit card tokens, their account, their personal guest account, etc., etc. It just goes on and on and on. So there is a lot of information that can be retained about the guest. So it's extremely important that we protect the integrity of a guest record. Now, sometimes I see, and I visit hundreds of properties over the years, and I speak to lots of people. And the one thing that I notice and I hear a lot of is that people will, for whatever reason, say, hey, hang on, that guest that's in that reservation, that's not actually the right guest. This typically happens in a sibling reservation, in a master reservation, what we used to call a group reservation. And somebody will say, oh, no, that's the guest for the organizer, not the person I wanted in room 3. And they'll start editing this record. Well, what you're doing if you do that is you're actually destroying, you're corrupting the guest record that may have been present in dozens of previous reservations and future reservations. What you need to do is replace the guest. If you discover that this is the wrong guest, don't edit this one. You need to go to these 3 dots here and click on replace guest. And this is where you can put in the correct guest. You can either search for an existing or enter a completely new guest here and do it that way rather than edit. If you had a guest in front of you or on the phone and they're saying, oh, look, my phone number's changed, for example, then yeah, look, sure, you would edit this. But if you want to replace the guest, make sure you use replace guest. While we're on those 3 dots, you'll see that one was save. That can be very, very important. Sometimes you might get to a situation where you're taking a reservation and you've got all this information, and then at the end, the guest might say, oh, look, yeah, I've got the price there. Look, perhaps I don't really want to go ahead. Now, if you close this reservation, if you use the exit button at the top right-hand corner of the reservation, you're going to lose everything, including the guest that you've just put in. And it may be that you'd like to keep this guest record because maybe they're going to call back later, or maybe you want to use it for marketing purposes down the track. So rather than just lose everything, you can click on the 3 dots and click save. And to be honest, it's not a bad way to go if you are in the habit of taking the guest details before you go on. It's not a bad idea to take all the details and then just click save here, and then at least you know you've got that secure. We'll just go down and, the other thing you could have done in that situation, if the guest said that they didn't want to go ahead, you could change the status of the reservation to a pencil reservation and perhaps agree that you'll hold on to it for an hour, a day, a week, whatever. Let's just go and have a look at a few things now within this guest record here, just some of the things that you may or may not be aware of. This little icon here, CC token, is where you would capture credit card tokens. You can have multiple tokens. The next one is the guest account. Can be very, very handy. Typically used for, let's say we've taken a reservation, the person's paid a deposit. They now need to cancel, and you might very graciously have allowed them to keep that as a credit for a future reservation so that those funds could be stored in the guest account. The next one is relevant depending on when you're watching this video. If you're with us today at the webinar, and thanks for coming along, You may not see this because you might be in the live version and I'm in the beta version, which is a sort of the final testing stage of the latest releases. This one is called Statistics. We click on here, we can see a bit of a snapshot of the value that this particular customer has brought to our property. Just a few statistics such as the last room they were in, the number of visits, average income. Now you might sort of say, yeah, but hang on, I've already got that. That was down here in my systems fields. But it gives you the opportunity to hide those, give you a little bit more room on the screen, and it's just a nice, quick little snapshot that you can go and have a look at those stats. So just a nice little add-on. Let's just have a look at some of the things that we need to know about here. Colours. Probably everybody knows that if it's that blue colour, it's a mandatory field, so we have to enter some data into that before we can continue with the reservation. This sort of manila-y colour is a systems field, so that's populated for you by the system, things such as date created. And in this particular little case, I'm going to show you a couple of fields that don't normally exist. Look down the bottom to pet's name and free parking. You might be saying, well, I've never seen those before. Well, I'll show you in a moment how you can add things like that in. We did mention very, very quickly that if something is underlined, it means that you can do something more with it. Classifications, which we spoke about a little bit in the last webinar, really handy way to, as the name suggests, classify guests by, maybe their interest or their type, whatever. And we can add different classifications to a particular guest. I'll make him a fishing and a food person. And there they all are. So we might just go now and have a look at where we can add some of these fields. Now, if I go over here in the left-hand side to setup and then go all the way down to property options, you'll see one there called labels. Now, in your system, if you can't see labels, it probably means you're just a little bit down the food chain and you haven't been given access to labels. If you want access, you might have to speak to your supervisor at the property. When I click on labels, do I want to save that? Yeah, may as well. When we go into labels, and I'll start off at system, and you can see that all of the default field names in RMS, or most of them anyway, can be changed to something that you prefer. And if we look over here at client, for example, the default name for a customer in RMS is client, but you might like to, as I have, change it to guest. There's quite a few fields there that you can change to more accurately review your type of business. But let's go up here to guest, and we can also add in more fields. So with RMS, if the default, out of the box doesn't have every single field you need, you can add your own. And these fields can be added into things like the report writer, which we spoke at nauseam last webinar. You can certainly use these field names to search for particular criteria about guests. It might just be a label name, and you can see that some labels, some fields can have up to 20 characters, some up to 50, so choose wisely. We can also have a yes/no answer. So I've had this one, free parking, yes or no. And I've got one here called member expiry, which is a date validating style field. So lots of ways we can add different fields into the client record. Now, we need to just a couple other little things I wanted to show you. Once again, small enhancements, but they are going to be important. One of them is the mobile phone number field. And you'll see that now it has the prefix of country and the country number, the area of nationality code. If you enter the guest and enter their nationality, it's going to choose the prefix from their country of origin. If there's no country of origin, it's going to use the prefix for the country that the system is operating from. In my case, it's Australia, so it's going to display the Australian prefix. That's a nice to have, but it's also very important because it's going to increase the efficiency of when you're doing things like sending out SMSs. It's going to have the numbers formatted correctly, so you're going to have far fewer bounce backs, etc. So a nice little handy thing. All right, I'm just going to talk about this free parking in just a little minute because it is kind of important as we progress on. And you'll see I've said in this case that this guest does get free parking. I could say no, or I could say yes. There you are. Sorry, it wasn't working. There we go. Or I could say yes. I'm going to show you in a few moments why that's important. So where do we get to determine what we see in this screen? And this screen that we're looking at, this snippet, it's a little bit like a fingerprint. You know, there's really probably no two that are exactly the same in the world because we can change the order, the fields what we call them, where they land in the field, etc., etc. So let's go and have a look where we'd do that. I'm going over now to the left side menu. I'm going to Setup, and I'm going down to Users, which is right down the bottom, and then I'm going to go to Field Maintenance. Okay, so this is where we set up the fields we want to display in the guest details. We also do the reservation details here, but we're not talking about that today. Let's talk about a few different things. Now, at the moment, we have got manager selected. So these are all of the fields that are available sort of at the upper level, if you like. You know, these are the ones that the manager can see, and we can hide a field by taking the check mark out of the box, or we can display a field by putting the check mark in the box. Now, you'll see that there are literally, I don't know, there must be like 100 fields there. And a lot of them you would look at and you'd think, what is this all about? This has got no relevance to my business. Well, that's fine. Just don't put the check mark in the box. And quite often what happens is over the years, you know, there are clients who say, hey, look, we really need this field for our business, are really important. And RMS over the time have put those fields in. Chances are they're not relevant to you. However, from time to time when a new release comes out, you'll find that those fields are by default exposed on the client record, and you're suddenly seeing fields that aren't relevant. So it's not a bad idea every now and then to just come in here and have a quick look down the down the column and see which fields are exposed that you don't really want to be exposed. So as I say, these are all of the fields that the manager can see, but we might have employees. Now let's go down here to Kevin, and you can see that at the moment, Kevin can see all of the fields that the manager can see, but there may be some, and you might say, hey, look, there's just some of these that I don't necessarily want Kevin to see. For instance, I don't know, maybe I don't want him to see classifications. Maybe I don't trust him to make that decision, so I'll take the checkbox out of there. I'll just, no, I don't check. Oh, there we go. Just hop out of there for a sec. Lovely. So here we are back in Manager, and you'll see that we also have a couple of columns here that talk about on save and on check-in. This is talking about mandatory fields, and we might have some fields that we say are mandatory when we save the reservation. So here I'm on the phone, I'm taking the reservations. These are all the mandatory fields, but sometimes the person making the reservation may not know the answer to that question at the time they make the reservation. So we might say, well, it's not mandatory when you make the reservation, but is mandatory when you check in. So that's what those two rows are for there. Now, two other important things to see here. One is the RMS Online options. So if I click on here, these are the fields that are visible on RMS Online. And you, as I say, you can make some mandatory and you can make some not mandatory. And this is where you would do that. And then we've got the client profile, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail in just a moment. Now, this is quite important because you'll see that getting back to our pet's name and our free parking thing, you know, now with our pet name, we might want to ask people their pet name because, you know, we're a pet friendly property, and, you know, we want the guests to think that we care about their pets and that we care about their name. So we might have a field to collect that data. But you might want to decide, do you want to see that in the client profile? And we're going to go into the client portal in a moment and look at the client profile and see what that would look like to the guest. I'm just going to hop out of there. So let's just go over here for a moment, and we're going to go into the guest portal. Once again, we're looking at that new, fresh user interface. I've put my phone number in. I'm now going to hit get my access code. Now, I'm under no pressure at all, but I'm just looking at the text message that has just been sent to me. So this is what's going to happen. I've put in my phone number. It's now sending me a number. It came instantly. I'm going to type in that number here. No pressure whatsoever. And it's automatically going to go into the client profile. It's going to ask me to enter payment details, but I don't want to do that just at the moment. It's going to ask me if I want to pre-check in. I don't want to do that just at the moment either. And in this example, I've got just about everything turned on, so we could show you everything. But what I particularly want to show you today is the guest profile within the guest portal. And this is something, you might direct people to, because maybe you want to invite them into supplying information that, might be a bit tedious at the front desk. Maybe you want to encourage them to tell you stuff. Let's go and have a look at it. I'm going to click on profile and edit profile. And I will tell you, as a property owner who has been using this for several years now, it just amazes me how many people just on their own find this and fill in stuff. The first thing I would say is just be careful what you're exposing here at the moment, because I've been to, apart from being an RMS guru and a property owner, I'm also an extensive traveller, and we always try and stay at properties that use RMS, and I'm always curious as to what people are exposing in this situation. And sometimes it's reams and reams, like all this stuff, and I'm sure that they don't mean to expose that to the guest. So if there's one thing you get out of this webinar today, it is, when you get off, get into field maintenance and just check what you're exposing on guest profile, because you might be bedazzled by what you're exposing. So I've got stuff here like member number. Now, if you're connected to a member database and you want people to put their number in, then yes, you would expose that. All of this stuff, the address, postcode, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, why wouldn't you want them? I have exposed classification. Now, just by the quirk of how RMS works, some things are interactive, some things aren't at the client level. Classification's one. So I'd probably argue, rather than, telling these people that that they're into astrophotography, fishing and food, it would probably be more prudent to hide that field altogether. But let's look at these two fields down the bottom that I created. Now, this might be the sort of thing you want to expose to guests, like I say, pet's name. Gee, these people really care about my pets. They want me to put their names in, and I think guests might probably think that was a pretty cool thing. The same thing with free parking. You might say, well, I've by default, I'm going to mark free parking as with the no, but people might say, hey, look, I can get free parking. Now, the fact that everybody at the whole property always gets free parking is irrelevant. Somebody thinks they're getting something for nothing. So not a bad thing. So the take-home message there, and you can see my voice is starting to go, but I'm going to bat on through this very bad case of man flu. But so that's just some of the things that we can do with guest profiles. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's just about all I wanted to say. But what I do want now is this is a great time to ask a question. And if you'd like to start typing your questions in now into the chat box, and we'll start to prepare the answers, and I'll read out the answers in a moment. But I think sometimes what happens is people, don't want to type the questions in because they're sort of listening to what I'm saying and looking at what I'm doing. But what I'm going to do now is just give you my opinion on a few things. And if you like to ignore what I'm about to say, you can just concentrate on your typing your questions in. And it's about, and I'm just going to open up a reservation again. I'll just bypass that and I'll just make everything a little bit smaller. So there you go, folks. Get on with asking your questions. So people often ask me, what should we display and what shouldn't we? What's important and what's not? And what tends to happen, particularly in the larger properties, but not just in the larger properties, you sort of get this opposing forces. You've got Poindexter over there in finance, and he's saying, I want the data. I need more data. Give me the data. And Stella's in marketing, and she wants to know all about the buyer behaviour. Meanwhile, Nancy's on the front desk, and it takes her 45 minutes to make a reservation because she's got to ask 500 stupid questions. And asking 500 stupid questions is fantastic if you're going to collate that data, and if it's accurate and true, and if you're then going to make informed decisions using that data to improve your business, then sure, go ahead, ask 500 questions and take 45 minutes to check somebody in. But if you're really just asking those questions just for the sake of it, you've just been to a seminar at hotel manager school or whatever, and they're saying, oh, you got to get the data, but well, do you? And my classic case in point, my hobby horse is source of business, or booking source as we call it in RMS. And the reality is, what are you asking? You're saying, oh, hello, thanks for coming. Now, can you tell me how did you find out about our property? And people don't know. And the answer they're probably going to give you is that, I Googled it. And 99.9% of people go, I don't know, I Googled it. If you don't ask the question in the right way, if the guest doesn't really know, if the person behind the counter is lazy and just puts, the donkey vote and chooses the one at the top, you're wasting a lot of time asking a question that the guest can't really answer. For what purpose? So all I say is that just think carefully about the questions you're asking. Do you really care about the answer? Are you going to do something with the answer? If not, maybe it's best to just keep this part of the reservation process nice and simple and quick and easy. There you are. That was my opinion, Dave Jones, on which data to collect. But hopefully, folks, that has given us a little bit of time now to get some answers. And Liz, is that true?
Absolutely. We have a few questions coming through in the chat, and some very helpful answers from Jenna, who is our specialist helping us out today. So over to you, Dave. First one is, what do the different field colours mean?
Yes. Now that's a good question. Now I did cover that, but I'll just quickly go over it again. So if it's a blue field, it's a mandatory field. It means you must put some information, some data of some sort into that field before the system will let you go. This lighter sort of yellowy color is a systems field that will be populated by RMS. There is another field for when a field is mandatory on at check-in, and it's sort of a light browny sort of a color. Unfortunately, I haven't got it displayed here in this example, but it's that's why that's that sort of slightly browny color. You'll see also that if somebody's listed, I'll just need to go into a real reservation just a moment. Bear with me. Here we go. We're going to Mr. Example Guest. Just click on him. And you'll see that if he happened to be on the blacklist, it's nice and red and bold and sort of in your face a little bit. So that's pretty much the system's colours.
Beautiful. And next question is, how does the country code on the mobile field work?
Yep. Okay. So if the nationality hasn't been nominated on the guest record, so in this case I've got nationality Australia, but let's say I didn't have a country there, it would default to the region that the property is operating in. But if I put, I don't know, Uzbekistan or something in the nationality, you'd have the Uzbekistani prefix listed here. And that's pretty much how that works. So all you need to do as an operator is simply input the guest's mobile phone number. There you
Fantastic.
go.
Alrighty. Next question is, how do we choose what fields display for a guest on the guest portal?
Yes, and we sort of went through that. So I'll just quickly show you again. So we were down there in setup, we were down here in users, and we were down here in field maintenance. And we need to, on the very far left-hand column, we need to click client profile or guest profile, depending on what you've renamed it. And then we check the box on the ones we want to display, uncheck the box on the ones we don't want to display.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. Is there a way to ensure new bookings dropping in from the GDS don't create a new guest profile?
Yes, now that is just a fantastic question, and I'm gonna answer that by talking about something that I had forgotten to mention completely, and that is merging. So when we talked about all of those sort of things, so that's a really good point. You know, somebody from the GDS or online bookings or whatever, the bookings dropping in, and we don't want to have multiple records. And I'll give you an example of that. Let's just say we were taking a reservation at the front desk, maybe on the phone or maybe somebody in front of me. And let's say I say, "What is your name?" And he says, "My name's Aaron Aardvark." And you can see that I've got two Aaron Aardvarks here, and you wouldn't think that was possible. And I've got a strong suspicion that it's the same record because they both live in the same street address. They both have the same mobile phone number. But as we scroll over, we find out that they have different email addresses. So it's the same person, but multiple records. Very easy to fix manually. We just go to the three dots here and we click on merge. We say these are the records we want to merge. And, you know, sometimes I've seen 10, 15, 20 multiple records for the same person in the past. So you highlight them all. When I click merge, what it's going to do is take the oldest record. So the very first time this person made a reservation, it's going to take that record, but it's going to include the most recently added or edited personal information. So it'll be the first record that was ever there, but let's say over the years I've changed my mobile phone number or my email address or whatever. That's what it's going to keep. Let's have a look when we click merge. Get the little warning, this is what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Are we sure we want to do that because it can't be undone? Rah, rah, rah. Yes, we are very happy. You know, they don't match, blah, blah, blah. You're really sure? Yes, we're sure. So if you mess this up, it's your fault. Okay, and we're now down to just the single Aaron Aardvark. Now, you might say, well, that's all well and good, but what about if I want to do that across the board? Oh, yeah, see, asking me lots of questions. We'll just get out of here. I just want to get out of here. Thank you. So let's go down to utilities for a moment, and let's look at merging down here. Now, this is something we've been doing for a couple of years now. And why can't I see that? Am I in utilities? I'll just go into utilities here and we'll go down to merge. Guest merge. That's why I couldn't see it. Guest merge. Okay, so, and what we can do, we can automate this. So we can just do a one-off and we might pick a pattern match and we might just do a nice simple one. We might say last name and mobile, or we might say, no, I want to do last name, first name and email, for instance. And you can do multiple of these and, you know, you might have good reason to do that. You either want to be really severe about it or a little bit cautious about it. And we could hit the begin merge button here and it's going to go through and find all of the matches and remove any of the duplicates. So you can do that as a one-off. And you if you've never done this, you'll be amazed at how many duplicates you have. Or if you want to, and once again, I've been doing this for about a year or so and it works perfectly, the auto merge enable button, you can tick that one and every day this utility will run automatically and it will send you an email showing you the results. And you'll find after a while, you know, it's either one a day or none a day because you get a little bit more attuned to this. Now, that's an extremely long way of answering the question, what happens when an online booking comes in? Well, RMS uses these pattern matches to search for duplicate records when a reservation comes in. So if you've got a guest record in there for, Aaron Aardvark, for instance, and Aaron Aardvark makes a booking through RMS Online, an OTA, a GDS booking, whatever, RMS will look for a duplicate record, and if it finds it, it will merge those records. Sorry that took so long, but that's the answer.
We love an in-depth explanation, so all good. Thank you, Dave. We have a couple more questions, guys. If there is anything you want to ask before we wrap up the session, make sure you drop it in the chat now so we have time to get you a perfect answer. Our next question for Dave is, do we have a direct marketing opt-out field?
Well, we do. We do. So that's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. So I'll just go back into into users. I'll find it in a minute. Just a sec. Setup. Here we go. And down to user, not user information. Sorry, I'll chop that out of the recording. It makes me look incompetent. Down to users, into field maintenance. So there's a couple. The one that you're probably looking for is these ones here, the marketing opt-out. That's probably the one you want. And just depending where you use it. So, it might be a very manual thing. Somebody might call you and say, hey, look, don't send me any more stuff. And then you could just simply tick the box on their client record. And then when you send out marketing material, whether it's an SMS, an email, or an EDM, if you're using the EDM module, they will not receive those. Now, there's a few more fancy-dancy ones, if you like. You've got the EDM filter one opt-out, and it gets a bit more advanced. But the people that need that would know what that's all about. But for just the average Joe on the street, you're looking for a marketing opt-out, that is the one you're looking for.
Fantastic. A few more questions coming through. Can we change the country code on the guest's mobile field?
Yeah, you can. You absolutely can. So I should have kept that open. So, for example, I've got Australia here, but I can pick any country in the world, and there they are.
Beautiful. Thank you for that one. And last one, potentially, can a mandatory yes/no field be blank before it's updated?
That is a fantastic question. Now, I was just looking at this. I had hoped it had been updated. The answer is no, but let me just show you in field maintenance. Oh, no, sorry, not in field maintenance. Let me go back into labels again. Property information, labels. You'll see that if we go into reservations, we do have that opportunity where we've got a blank yes, no. So the field name is in this particular example is pets. It starts off as a blank field. You ask the question, do you have pets? They say yes, they say no. You give the answer. Unfortunately, that is not available in the guest section. I think it'd be a really good thing to have. So that might be one to put in the suggestion box. Jenna, who's on the call here today, who looks after all things wonderful in the knowledge world, such as the knowledge centre. She also looks after the suggestion box. And I'm sure that if everyone here today was to put that suggestion in and vote on that suggestion, it would probably come in fairly quickly.
Fantastic. I will get a link to our suggestions box as well and drop that in the chat. And one of our last questions is on how the guest portal displays to the guest. Now, Dave, is that something you'd be able to walk us through today, or we can actually include a follow-up in the email?
Can you just read the question to me again?
Yes. How does the guest portal display for the guest? So, yeah, are you able to do that last minute and show us what it looks like for guests logging in?
Look, absolutely. So I'll just go back to a screenshot over here. Just go back a little bit. So when somebody goes to a generic link to the guest profile, they're going to come to something like this. Then they will enter their phone number or their mobile, their phone number or their email address. Then they'll be sent a 6-digit access code. They'll enter that and they'll come into the guest portal. If you've sent them a communication from an SMS or an email with a direct link to the guest portal, they won't see that. They'll go directly into something that looks something like this. And, we did a whole webinar on the guest portal. So, look, I won't spend 45 minutes talking about it now. But this, and I've turned on all of the features in this particular example, this gives the guest almost, carte blanche access to all of the things that you would want them to have, and the sort of information that they can give you. They can pay off charges. They can add guest details. So if it's, a husband and wife going, maybe you've got the husband's details, but you can enter then the details of the partner. There's this thing called preferences, which, take me 45 minutes to discuss. You can sell extra things like, late checkouts, cots, all that sort of stuff. They can do their pre-check-in, which is half the reason that the guest portal exists in the first place. So people can provide all of the information that you need before they get there. They can even check themselves in if you allow them to. They can send you messages. It's all here. They can send themselves copies of invoices. Massive. If you're one of those people who works in a property where every second phone call is, could you send me the invoice from 6 months ago, particularly towards the end of the financial year. So, just a massive time saver. You can sell gift cards from here, extra stuff. You can make reservations. Guest portal. It's just, and we use it extensively here at our little property. I can't rate it more highly. Just a fantastic thing.
All right, so I think we will wrap it up there with questions for today, guys. So what we will do is at the end of this session or later today, we will have a recording of the full session, the top questions, and also if there were any really great ones that we weren't able to get through in the session today, we will answer those in the follow-up email as well. I'll include a link to the suggestion box. So if there's anything that pops to mind, you can go in there. And as always, you can always reach out to our support team with a service request as well if there's anything additional. So I'll pass it to Dave to wrap up. Thank you so much from my side, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day. And back to Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Thanks very much for your support, and Jenna in the background who provides lots of help with answers and preparation in the first place. Massive asset to me. And thanks everyone for coming along, and we'll see you next time.